I'm very excited to share with you a beautiful message that spans at least one lifetime. Love, Spirit shared with me through this story, how we can hold the light in any situation. So this story starts in a context that is quite dark. And that darkness is much of the life situation of my father. My father had a really tough life, and by his own estimate, he would say that there were some things that he caused, that he was the cause of the pain. Not to go too deep into his history, but he had a very painful childhood. It was fraught with abuse and abandonment. And then the childhood that we experienced for me and my sisters was also full of abandonment and eventually, full of abuse and eventually abandonment. My father was very, very ill with the disease of alcoholism. He was also very, very ill with a disease of rage. Really, I could see now from this perspective and looking back that my father had a lot of attachment energy that were really embedded in his field and activated by that disease of alcoholism. And the relationship that my mother and my father had was one where he would commit violence upon her. And my sisters are older than me, and so they bore a lot of that burden as I was the youngest, and they would be taking care of me. So suffice it to say, all of that occurred, and my mother and I left my father when I was 11 years old. And at that time, I think there was some overlap. The person that my father ended up marrying, I think he actually started to see her before my parents had split. There's a reason for that that's going to come to light. The reason I'm telling you about the person that he married. So flash forward to 2016, and this year, and that it was in May, that was when my father passed. In the years between age 11 and 42, that's 2 years ago, that's how old I was when my father passed. I saw my father, I think 3 times. Once when I was 19, and 2 more times when I was 40, and then 42. When I was 40, my husband, my brand new husband, well, we had been together for 9 years, but we got married after 9 years. And as a part of our honeymoon, we actually went to Texas where my father lived. And my husband got to meet my father for the first time after having been together for 9 years and marrying me. And then 2 years after that, so 2 years ago from the time that I'm offering this message right now, that's when my father passed after having had like 4 strokes and emphysema and all kinds of stuff. And so the story surrounding his passing was crazy. Let's just say that. I actually do have a video up on my YouTube channel about all of the details of it. But as my father passed, the last time I saw him was just a couple of months before he passed, because he had had a stroke or a stroke-like event. It seemed like it was possibly the end, but he was a couple more months, and then he had the events that actually caused his body to expire. But as he passed, the events surrounding that were really powerful. Spirit showed up in crazy ways. And so essentially when my father was passing, my sisters were, they aren't practitioners like, me, I guess, but they all are believers, and I think they have natural tuning to spiritual. They've all had experiences, psychic or spiritual experiences in their lives. And it turns out when something like this is going on, your psychic sensors kind of like open up, because as it was explained to me, as our biology, which is, our Father, our biology, and a part of spirit that is us, was moving from the physical realm to the non-physical realm, from physical to spirit, our connection is sort of pulled and stretched. And so when someone that is close to you, whether it's someone that you love or just someone that you have a lot of ties to in many other ways, moves to the spirit realm, you kind of you might feel your spiritual sensing kind of shift, because your consciousness is now moving with that orientation a bit. And then you ground back into this experience again. So as he was passing, though, the thing is that my father always said, I'm going to hell, I'm going to hell, because he had so much regret from all of the pain that he, like I said, would have said he caused, just the rage-filled life that he had. And so knowing that it was his end, and as he was in his decline, I called on prayer warriors, meaning friends of, mine from the Lightworkers Lab, colleagues, not just the Lightworkers Lab, other friends that I know who are spiritual practitioners, or, who are, like I say, just I would call my prayer warriors. And I asked for prayer because I wanted to, the only thing I was concerned about was helping my father to cross into the light as his consciousness separated from his physical form. And so I'll hold off a little bit on how that all happened, telling you the core of that message, but suffice it to say that when it was time for my father to not re-enter his body, when he recognized that he was no longer re-entering his body, he showed up to me as I told him he could, while my meditation, my prayer, being in the room with him remotely, because I stayed in California while he was in Texas passing. And in the spirit realm, even before his body had expired, I told him that he could come to me if he got scared or concerned or he needed help or guidance. And when I first told him that, he thought he was just high on drugs and thought that he was hallucinating me. And then a couple of days or whatever the timeline is later, when he knew that he wasn't high, and that he knew that his body was no longer viable and that he was not going to be re-entering it, even though it was like in a coma, he came to me, and I crossed him over, or I escorted him to be able to cross into the light. And it was an experience like none other. I have the full story. I'll post a link maybe if you're interested in all those details. But actually his body hadn't expired yet, so he crossed into the light. I think it was about, I don't remember if it was 18 or 20 hours before his body expired. But he was in the light. And so, phew. Now there was a part of the story there that I'm going to share with you in a moment that supported, besides all the prayer warriors, that supported him to move into the light, a particular focus, and allow me to move to a more recent part of this story. 2 years later, actually just a few days ago, and my sister texted me that his wife was in her last days. I think she had had a heart attack and was in a coma or something like that, had not been conscious for a while. I think it was 3 weeks, because my sister said in the interim of her actually going into the hospital and not being conscious, about 3 weeks ago, prior to that, her grandson had passed suddenly. And he passed because he was actually helping someone in the street, and I think he got hit by a car. And so he was doing something very brave, and he actually, in a heroic act, lost his life. And she hadn't even heard the news that her grandson had passed, because she had been unconscious as that had happened. Interestingly, this grandson of hers had the same middle name as my father's middle name, and that middle name is my grandfather's first name. And so that was like at this point, that was on January 25th. And so when I got that text, I was actually visiting with Crystal Ann Compton and Lauren Antifermo. We were on a trip together, spending time together. And so I was going to meet them, and I met with Lauren first, and I explained to her, you know, can we have a prayer, because my father's wife, and I say that because I didn't know her, I only met her once, but my father's wife is passing. My sister said that she had always said that she was an atheist, and so, you know, my sister didn't really know what would happen, and just, you know, said, will you please pray for her and let me know if you see her cross. So then I was talking to Lauren, and Lauren was holding space with me, and Lauren was basically tapping into my father's wife and what was going on with her. And Lauren was saying, is she kind of stubborn? And I said, well, honestly, I really don't know, because I don't know her, but just how my sister kind of posed it as, she always claims that she was atheist, you know. So in that energy, I could kind of maybe pick up, maybe she is a little bit stubborn or something. And Lauren saw that she was basically in this interim state. And as we were sort of asking or supporting her to cross over into the light and laying out that plan for her, Lauren picked up that she was kind of saying, you know what? I'm going to wait for God to show up for me, basically, kind of being like, if there's a God, he can come find me. Kind of like, I need a big show from God to prove to me that this is the crossing over, that this thing to do is real. And so it's like, okay, that's, you know, what can we do? And then Lauren, as we were connecting together, Lauren said to me, who has a mustache? Well, my father was known for his mustache. His whole life, always had a mustache. And so I said, that's my father. Of course, there's no way Lauren could have known that. She doesn't know that about my father, doesn't know my father. I think I have a picture deep in Facebook. Lauren has not seen it, but anyway, so Lauren is connecting with my dad, and I hadn't really connected with my father directly since he passed. I could feel a very vague energy, but a direct connection where messages came through, that hadn't really happened that much. Kellyanne Nelson, when I had a session with her, picked up some, again, like kind of expanded energy, because that was the state that he was in. And I don't remember exactly, but I think Kelly was picking up that he was basically saying he was in his healing, and he, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't feel that he had something to contribute or something at the time. So Lauren is picking up on my dad, and she said, he's saying that he's so proud to have been able to have you come through him in this life. And he doesn't know why you came through him, but he's so proud. And I started to get misty, as I am again right now, and I said, Lauren, when I crossed him over, that's what I focused on. Because this is what I'm talking about, being able to hold the light in any situation. So the situation of my father's life and that of now his death, where he has beliefs that he's going to hell and to torture and punishment. The focus that I held for him while he was in the state of non-physical, when he came to me and he was scared in spirit, he came to me in spirit, knowing he was not going back into his body. He came to me terrified. And I just focused, Daddy, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for you. Because, scoreboard, I'm here. I'm so happy. And I'm doing things that I love. And I have people that I love in this life that I love so much, and I get to help others, and I get to do this right now. Daddy, thank you. Daddy, you can't deny that. You brought me through you. Daddy, you did this. And with that focus, that light, that pure truth that he couldn't deny, No, he couldn't, if he couldn't deny that, and therefore he couldn't experience all of the regrets that he was afraid of. He couldn't experience the pain. And so I just held that, and I held that with him. And I said, as he felt that, and we just held one another in that truth and in that love. And I said, Daddy, I always knew that you loved me. I even told him in this time when he's, non-physical, his body's not expired and he hasn't crossed into the light. I told him, I always told my husband Brian, that I always knew that you loved me. That's something I knew for sure. And so as I held that frequency with him, and we held that light together, I said, Daddy, everyone gets healing. Daddy, do you feel this light and this love that we have together? That's how you go through. And I'll hold your hand all the way through, Daddy. And so Lauren got that message. That was, again, a few days ago, surrounding the passing of his wife of over 30 years. And so that was really beautiful to have that experience. So you guys know Lauren, right? She's an astrologer. That's like this much of what she is and what she does. But remember that as I tell you the next part of the story. So again, in the darkest possible context, there is light. And there was light for us to hold on to and to expand. And that light became a portal to the other side for my daddy to go through and to cross into the light and receive his healing. And even the times throughout my life when I may have been a scared little girl, that light was there. So that was 125. And yesterday was January 29th. I say 125, it was January 25th. So on January 29th, which is yesterday at the time I'm offering this, I get a text from my sister, the same sister who was keeping me updated on my father's wife. And my sister texted me that my father's wife passed just before noon today. And I hadn't really, realized it. I hadn't recognized it until my sister said the next thing, because, I didn't spend a lot of time with my dad, and especially in adulthood. But my sister's text said she passed just a couple of minutes before noon today. She waited until Daddy's birthday so that he could take her into the light. That was my dad's birthday. And his wife passed on his birthday. And so this morning, as I was in meditation, my daddy came through to me very clearly, very powerfully. And like I said, I haven't really connected with him much since he passed 2 years ago. Not directly. He wasn't ready, or I wasn't ready. The energy wasn't ready. But he explained to me how that path of light that we created was used, again, it was used as an anchor for him to be able to do some powerful work as spirit in physical, to be able to be that sign from God that his wife demanded in order for her to be in belief to be able to cross over. And that the space that Lauren held with me, the astrologer, the one whose heart is so connected to the planets, to the zodiac, that also expanded that light. And on his solar return, he was able to be the sign from God, to use the same path of light that he and I had created together and escort his wife into the light. And so being able to hold the light in any possible situation. It's possible, and it makes everything timeless. It makes everything that happened in my father's life redeemed, spread, covered, and uplifted with that light. And how everything triangulated in a timeless way for his wife to be in her stages when she was, for me to be with Lauren, for Lauren to be who she is, for him to come through to her, for her to be able to hear the message that was validating of the work that we did when he crossed. I mean, it is overwhelming what we get to do in this life. It's astounding. And what I saw, do you remember high school geometry? I do. I didn't love math, but I did love geometry. And partly because my high school drama teacher also taught my geometry class. And so I think I was able to really connect with it through that lens of the kind of creator that he is. But I remember having an awakening moment in high school geometry as we looked at the dot, the line, the plane, the cube. So the dot is a point, not a dot, it's a point. The point is actually infinite. And as you shift your perspective a little bit to how the point is infinite, it becomes a line. And then the line is infinite. And then as you shift your perspective on the line, then you see that it's a plane. And it's infinite. And as you shift your perspective on the plane, it becomes a cube, and it becomes the entire grid. And that's what the light is. The light that my father and I focused upon when he was crossing, that was a point. It was like a seed of infinite potentiality. And then as we allowed that to enhance, it became infinite, and it became a path of light, a line that carried him over. And then as he changed perspectives there, it became a plane of healing. And that plane of healing shifted into a cube and into a grid and into a powerful working from spirit to physical. And that entire grid, just like the grid that's happening right here, that is the field of everything, the field of light. Everything is composed of light. And so at any point that you have any awareness, there is at least a point of light, a seed. That is a path. There is a path of light in any context, in any situation, because the entire field is composed of light. You're never off your path. You're never off your path of light. It's not possible. You are light.